I'm Autumn Brown, and I've ended the marriages of people I've never met. I live on Dakota and Anishinaabe land, currently known as Minneapolis.
I'm Adrian. Like, what does that even mean? Okay, and I'm Adrian Marie Brown, an explorer of orgasmic Buddhism, a writer of stories and songs, emergent strategist, pleasure activist, and I live in the land of the Shakori, Squirure, Tuscarora, and Lumbee peoples.
And this is How to Survive the End of the World.
Our podcast about learning from apocalypse with grace, rigor, and curiosity.
And we're back, bitches!
We missed you, but we were on vacation, so we didn't really miss anybody at all. I love that duality where I'm like, I really like all of our listeners. And when I'm not working, I'm like,
I'm out.
I'm good.
I'm out here.
Y'all are good. I'm good. We're all
good.
doing our thing.
Everyone's doing great.
I hope you all had some mini breaks and vacations in this summer period, too.
I really feel like,
we need it.
The U.S. would benefit from some of these practices that people do in other countries where they just take the whole month of August off. But
I like it.
Anyway, happy equinox, sister.
Thank you. Happy equinox to you.
Mm-hmm. We are living on the cusp.
I have to send you. I made a fall equinox spell that I really love. Like, I worked hard on it, and I'm gonna send it to you to make sure you actually read it.
Okay.
So we are deep in our All About Love season, and we have definitely a few more episodes to go. Mm-hmm. And today we're going to get into a topic that I just want to be frank, we have been putting off. Mm-hmm. So we're going to check in before we dive into it. I'm like, I want to check in with the context of like, when we planned this season, we were both in relationships, and we were like, yes, bell hooks just passed. Let's do this All About Love thing. Mm-hmm. And then both of us are not in relationship. And as we started the season, we were like, oh, do we still have to talk about falling in love?
Can we
I just want to be
skip
frank.
That part?
Let's just skip that part and only talk about other kinds of love. And I think we've covered a lot of other kinds of ground. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like we're healed enough, moved along in our journey enough, and have learned some major lessons from this year that I think bringing into this episode, which is really shifting from a framework of falling in love to choosing love. So we're going to get into that this episode. So given that context, how are you doing, Sister Autumn?
How am I doing? Physically, I am recovering from a chest cold. It was not COVID. As you know, but our listeners do not know, the Rona did finally get me at the end of August. So during my vacation, right when I was about to take a planned 10-day trip to New York to see all of my beloveds who live there, I tested positive for COVID, got very sick, and had to take the Paxlovid antiviral. Thank God that's available. That is a miracle drug.
Yes.
But, so my vacation ended up turning into sick time. So it's not COVID what I'm dealing with right now. What I'm dealing with right now is children are back in school and everyone's trading viruses. And the result is that then adults are also trading viruses.
So gross.
So I'm on the mend, but have been coughing a lot for the last 24 hours. And so I'm feeling a lot of the just what happens in your body when you're coughing for 24 hours. It's very exhausting. But, we're in now, this is week 3, I think, of my kids being back in school. And we're hitting that point of we're starting to settle in to the things that 3 weeks ago were everything's brand new and all the nerves. And now we're hitting the point where their kids are finding their people. And figuring out, who are they stylistically in this new moment.
Yes.
And
I was so proud of Mairead for starting the school year off with a beret. I felt really moved by that.
I feel like every other episode, Mairead is my flume of awe, and so I've been on the fence about whether or not to have that happen again. But her fashion sensibilities are just they just continue to excite me and floor me, frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how
I'm really glad you're like not the kind of person who exploits your kids, because it's,
Yeah,
definitely that could be, I'm like, oh yeah, I see why people are like, I have to make a whole Instagram channel of just my
I
child like getting
know,
dressed
I
or whatever.
know. But then you see there's a dark side to all of
But there's
that.
a dark, well,
There's a
because yeah,
dark
I'm like,
side.
then you grow up. I'm like, please, thank God, no one made me famous before I was
Seriously.
40.
Anyway, how are
So
you?
I am really in my own life, day to day. I'm in a state of bliss right
Hmm.
now. Um, I turned 44 over this break, over
Happy
this time
birthday.
apart. Thank you. And I spent it, I really did it a good job. Like leading up to my birthday, I just had these mini vacations and trips and like staycations with friends and family and all these loved ones. And I just got to see everybody and like lay eyes and hug everyone and hold everyone and just
Hmm.
know that everyone's okay. And then I went down to Jamaica and spent a week just by myself for my birthday. That was my gift to myself, was just like quiet time, reading next to the ocean, swimming in the ocean all day. And I have this Delphin water tablet thing that you can listen to music in the water, and I decided to take it.
It's
So I was
amazing what
literally,
they can do with technology now.
it is. And this is like, I, I just can't even talk. I'm like the experience of being like, I'm out as far as I can swim into the ocean with Renaissance blasting in my ears. And I halfway through the week, I was like, I can wear my straw hat out here and then I can stay longer because I'm like, then I'm basically under this little,
Oh, little
like,
like mini umbrella.
little bit. Exactly. Anyway, I was giving like peak strategic vacation vibes. And then I came home and went into retreat for the musical ritual that I'm building with OSF.
Ah!
And it was just Troy Anthony Burton and myself every day song building, and then taking it to these six singers and like watching them learn and feel and play with the songs, and like shaking off all my nerves and scared feelings about it, and just being like, I wrote songs.
Yes, you
And
did.
now they're moving into this next phase of arrangement and writing. And I mean, it's just, yeah, it was such a satisfying way to start off this year. And I'm really excited for people to hear and feel and see it. Also, I'm just kind of still right. Like, I just feel like for a couple years now, my therapist and I have been talking about like, I'm on the precipice of something and I'm not quite sure what it is, but I can
Yeah.
feel myself like on this edge. And I just feel like in flight, thermals under my wings, just going. I'm just like, I'm off. And
I see you
it's a
thermals.
really, yes. I did a lot of watching. I've been watching birds everywhere I go and just being like, okay, I know birds coast when they can, but like, how do they coast? I want to
Yeah.
understand more about this. Like, how do you find your thermals, and like when
Hmm.
like all of that. So I'm really like watching birds around the world do this.
Well,
Um,
actually, this is a perfect transition into our flume of awe
oh, good.
because um, my flume of awe is your musical ritual.
Oh, really?
Flume of awe.
Oh, let's flip away.
Our
Yay!
listeners are, y'all are all operating at a deficit because you're going to have to wait some period of time before you get to hear the music. But I got to
Yeah.
experience like snippets of recordings of along the way as it was coming together over the course of the week. And then I also got to listen to a recording of the presentation of the work. I have to say, I know I texted you this while in the middle of the week when you had sent me some of the first recordings. But like, I literally was sitting in my backyard listening to the recordings, and I could not help but begin to sing with the recording. And I was literally like, yes, like snapping, yelling. My next door neighbors were like, what, is she orgasming? Like, what's going on over there? They're fine. They know that I talk to myself and do weird things, but
that might be a push even for them.
It was, right. It was, I have to say, I mean, it's not just that the music is excellent, which it is, but it's also that like the music you've created and the way that the singers that you're working with are embodying it is like, it's creating, you're generating the field of ritual. You've been saying this all along, that with this project you want it to be one where people can like pick up the music and create it in whatever context they're in. And it's so clear to me that that's the way that the music is being composed, because there's a lot of different paths to composition. And there are a lot of ways that you could take that same music and make it complicated to a point where it would be really difficult to replicate. But the way, the like meditative and repetitive way that that the chords like build upon one another and then create room for other sounds to come forward that you didn't hear at the beginning of the song. Like you can really feel that it is actually of use for ritual. So that was, and then like as a listener, it's like, I can't help but feel this and then want to sing it too. So
I love that.
Well done. It was awesome. I felt awe hearing it, and it was really cool to be able to like pick out your voice in the midst of some of the songs. You know what I mean? Like,
well, can I tell you one of the things? This was not actually going to be my flume of awe, but there's one thing I want to share with you that is so amazing. Is about halfway through the week, I stopped singing along. Like I was like, I've passed the songs over and now they're being sung by the group. And it was meaningful. It was a meaningful choice for me because I'm like, I sing, I do my thing. I'm working on my vocal confidence but there's something I was like, I want to hear what happens if I'm not doing that. And these voices were incredible. So several times I sent recordings to people that I knew I wasn't singing on and they would come back and say, I hear you. And I was like, oh my God. What that
Are you serious?
But it's just like, yes. And especially like people who know me and are just like, I hear you. And it's like,
and I know what your voice sounds like.
I know what my voice sounds like. And I'm like, I'm not on the whole second half of the week. I was like, okay, I'm not singing into these, but there's a combination of what the soprano altos are doing that is like, it's just incredible.
That's blowing my mind, Adrienne.
It blew my mind too. I was like, I don't understand all of this, but it really thrills me. It thrills me. Because really that's cool. What I'm hoping that's what it feels like in the long run. Like I really wanted something that's like at the meeting place of like the best of what I've experienced in trance song chanting experiences, and then like Black gospel church revelation ecstatic experiences, but like all for like the earth and being humans and feeling. So it's really, I'm feeling it. And
I'm so excited for you, and I'm so excited for the world to get to experience this work.
Yay.
Yes.
Well, I'll find out. I'll ask the crew if it's okay to share a few snippets in here. But we, we're also, everyone keeps saying like, like My Little Aries Rising, I'm like, should we just share this right away? Like, should we just share this? And
They're like,
actually,
no.
we only worked on this for 3 days, and like, it's totally fine. We have a full year,
Yeah, it's like
so
we
we can
don't
give
have to
ourselves
do
more time.
anything before
I'm
time.
just like, but everyone should have it. So the thing that I wanted to uplift in my flume of awe is actually there's, something that has been making me feel a lot is seeing these waves of revolutionary response of women around the world fighting against patriarchy and standing up for like our right to choose what and how we do things with our bodies. So, and I think that that's women and non-binary and trans folks. It's I see it happening around the world.
Yeah.
And feminist men. I see all these people reading me like, no, fuck this patriarchy, we're done with it.
Yeah.
And so like in the US, I see it around the reproductive justice struggle. But then I've been paying attention and like watching what's happening around the world. And it's like in Iran now, people are like up in arms about this right to like not wear hijab. And then there's people in India who are like up in arms about the right to wear a hijab if they want to.
Right.
And like everywhere, it's just this idea of where we understand this larger pattern of people trying to take away our choice, whatever it is we choose to do with our bodies. And I just see the connective tissue of all that. And it's really been, just putting this awe in me because I'm like, oh, even for this generation that's actually fighting, there was this chant that I saw someone tweeted me, but it was like in Iran where people are like, we might die, but we will change this nation.
Wow.
And there was something about it that was like, there's, we're in this place where like our generation, this generation is making a move against patriarchy that is, I think, unprecedented in history. Like it feels global and it feels like we're so done. We're so done with it, right? So it gives me awe to be like, wow, like history will look back at this period as a major sloughing off of this ideology that doesn't fit our planet.
May
and
it be so.
I'm really grateful to be alive in this moment and be part of that push.
May it be so. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's related to this topic. I'm like, because we're talking about falling in love. We're talking about falling in love and choosing love. And we're going to get into it. We're going to start off with a bunch of Bell Hooks quotes because I think one of the things that Bell understood and that we all need to understand is the way that we have been taught to think about how we move into love very much serves patriarchy.
Yep.
So
ouch. Oops.
I'm just like, ooh, guess what? I'm going to be more choiceful. Okay, so do you want to just get into these quotes? Do you want to read the first one? We can just go back and forth.
Yeah, let's get into the magic. All right.
Okay.
Our first quote from Bell Hooks.
Bell Hooks, all about love.
Yeah, that. The language of having fallen gives the illusion that one is helpless during the process. It implicitly indicates that an individual is unable to be responsible for the situation, nor should they be. They have fallen, and that's that.
No doubt it was somebody playing the role of leader who conjured up the notion that we, quote unquote, fall in love, that we lack choice and decision when choosing a partner because when the chemistry is present, when the click is there, it just happens. It overwhelms. It takes control. This way of thinking about love seems to be especially useful for men who are socialized via patriarchal notions of masculinity to be out of touch with what they feel. In the essay Love and Need, Thomas Merton contends, quote, the expression to fall in love reflects a peculiar attitude toward love and life itself, a mixture of fear, awe, fascination, and confusion. It implies suspicion, doubt, hesitation in the presence of something unavoidable, yet not fully reliable, end quote. If you do not know what you feel, then it's difficult to choose love. It's better to fall. Then you do not have to be responsible for your actions. Even though psychoanalysts from Fromm writing in the 50s to Peck in the present day critique the idea that we fall in love, we continue to invest in the fantasy of effortless union. We continue to believe we are swept away, caught up in the rapture, that we lack choice and will. In The Art of Loving, Fromm repeatedly talks about love as action, essentially an act of will. He says, to love somebody is not just a strong feeling, it is a decision, it is a judgment, it is a promise.
So then she goes on to say, she's continuing to quote from in All About Love, and where he says, love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Love is as love does. It is an act of will, namely both an intention and action. Will implies choice. We do not have to love. We choose to love. Bell then comments, since the choice must be made to nurture growth, this definition counters the more widely accepted assumption that we love instinctually.
So we wanted to examine our own journey in this learning, right? Because it's one thing to read it, it's one thing to live it, and it's another to be able to reflect enough to be like, oh, I think I get it. Mm-hmm. I really get it. So I wanted to kind of just start off by talking about our patterns of falling in love. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like how do you fall in love, and what have you learned about yourself from falling in love? And I have to say, I also want to say that in the notes for this, I called it, how did we get our PhDs in what the fuck?
That's right. You did put that in.
Yes.
I once upon a time, you were present for this.
I remember.
We did a reading with Channy, a sister reading, and Channy was looking
Channy Nicholas, the amazing
people's astrologer, and Channy was looking at my chart and pointed out this particular signature that I had, and she was like, "So I'm guessing that for you." You have a pattern around falling in love where it's like big fantasy love and then big hangover. Is that right?
I was like, girl, and I was like, so personal.
Why did you say that? Yeah, and I would say I know I'm not alone in that pattern.
No.
And I think that, as we talked about in the polyamory episode, I think that not specific to monogamy, not specific to polyamory, not to specific to like any formation. We do have a tendency to engage in a lot of like fantasy as a part of how we like construct the relationship between ourselves and another person with whom we feel an intense connection. Yes. And so I would say in my experience, I do struggle with the question of like, do we love instinctually or not? Because I think that in my experiences I have experienced strong, intense sexual desire for another person, and I have experienced strong, intense connection that feels ancestral and spiritual and all those things. And I know the difference, right? I know the difference between like when what I'm feeling is like, ooh, I want to jump on that versus like, oh, something like there's something here and it feels mysterious to me, but it feels like also palpable. And so all that is to say, I'm really in agreement with the idea that we do ultimately love by choice. I think,
and that doesn't negate all that.
It doesn't negate the fact that like sometimes you can meet someone and truly feel like you were intended to make contact in this lifetime, and that I think that when I think about like that experience of being overwhelmed by falling in love. Like the overwhelmed as in like that, like because I think, I guess I'm making the connection right now between the phrase falling in love and that sense of being completely overwhelmed by the reality that I went from, I was walking around having a normal day to now I'm having in really intense connectedness feelings to another person, and I can't stop thinking about them. And
Yes.
that can happen. I've had the experience both of like meeting someone and having that connection just feel like an explosion just in the middle of the room. You know, it's like boom. You know, I remember with my ex-husband. Yeah, I clearly remember the very first time I ever laid eyes on him, which was before we even met. You know what I mean? Like, and I know so many people who have stories like that of like the first time we saw each other, the first time we were in the same room, you know? But I've also had the experience of like having the falling in love sensation creep in over time, where it's like, I met this person, we're building a friendship, and like everything is feeling like it's going along normally, and then suddenly, I'm suddenly finding myself in a state where I'm thinking about this person before I go to sleep, and I'm waking up in the morning and thinking about them, you know, which is like, you know, and sometimes that can be really difficult, right? Like if you're in a relationship where there's no pathway to it becoming like a romantic relationship, that can be difficult and scary when you realize that like that you're having that overwhelming experience of like inability to stop thinking about the other person and then but you can't do anything with it, you know? And so all that is to say, I feel like you know, there's all kinds of like there's all kinds of ways that we can think about and understand what's happening in our brains and in our bodies when that experience unfolds inside us.
That's
right? Because there's like there's neurological thing that's happening, there's chemical things that are happening, there's hormonal things that are happening. But for me, the place where I think the place where I go right now in terms of identifying my own pattern and then figuring out, well, what do I do with that, is if I'm thinking about what's happening on a spiritual level, then what am I being awakened to in the moment that I feel overwhelmed by a connection to another person? And then what am I responsible for related to that experience? Because I think where my pattern, where I've struggled, is that I feel the overwhelming connection, and then all thoughts of responsibility float away. You know, because it's intended, you know, and but then so what I'm trying to think about and work on in myself right now is like, okay, if the connection is real, and if the connection is real and genuine, and then with it does come a responsibility to do something, but the something depends on the context. That's right. It depends on the context. Anyway, I'll stop there. Yeah.
That's a lot of good fodder. And I mean, it's really cool to hear you reflect on these patterns that I've watched you experience. You know, I think for me, since I was very young, I have had a highly imaginative relationship to love itself. So, like, I remember very, very early on, like, my first crushes were almost always people who were unattainable in some way, like, didn't know I existed, or something like that.
Right.
You know, might be a classmate, but I was like, they don't even know, they literally don't know, like, we're not in the same realm or whatever, we don't talk to each other. And I would just pick them and project a love story between us, and they would just be the face of that love story. They would be the person. And I don't think I necessarily stopped doing that. So, you know, my imagination has always been, you know, like people always say there's three people, there's three energies, and there's you and the other person, and then the thing between you. And I'm like, and also my imagination. It's like, that's also another presence.
It's the fourth wall.
Yeah. And it's interesting to note. It's been very humbling actually to notice that I'm like, oh, part of that comes from traumatic shaping, right? Like there's a way that imagination comes in to be like, okay, I'll create safe ways for you to experience love because something in your system doesn't trust that it's safe to actually take this risk with other humans,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's something there that I've been, you know, studying about and talking about and trying to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think some of it is the social shaping of our little familial unit, right? So our parents fell in love in a very romantic story
Mm-hmm.
where, he made eyes at her in a library across an interracial, gap of culture. They fell in love. They were married 4 months later. They're still together.
And they eloped.
And they eloped
Mm-hmm.
and there was disowning. There was,
Love
it's an
against all
epic.
odds.
Exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a story. It's like no one else understands this, but like it's our love story, and and we were right because look, here we are still together,
Yeah.
supporting each other, growing old together. So even though many times in my life I've been like, that's not even what I'm trying to do. Like I don't want to get swept off my feet. I don't want a love story that no one else understands. I don't, that makes total sense for them. It would make less and less sense for me as I get older.
Right.
I'm like, I
Not
actually
up.
love
You're
my
not up
life
against
and
the same constraints.
at all,
Right.
right? Like I'm like, oh, I have the freedom in part because of stuff that they sacrificed and choices that they made. I have the freedom to like love out loud and be exactly who I am and be very choiceful.
Right.
But when that wave comes in to the shore, when someone's like, I'm here to sweep you off your feet, I'm always like, oh, are you the person I'm supposed to marry in 4 months and like we stay together for the rest of our lives?
Yeah.
And my imagination kicks in and it's like it's so now it's like the romantic imagination is at odds with like my actual romantic intentions and my actual like intentions for a good life. So that's the pattern that I've kind of noticed and unfolded. And I also think there's a big pattern of like once you decide to love someone, you have to love them no matter what. Like
Ooh, that's it.
that you just it's like so I'm like, oh, and I just saw this. I got to go see this musical Once on This Island, which I'm sure some of our listeners have seen. But it's this love story where this young girl sees this young man after he's been in a car accident. She sees him and she's like, you're the one for me. And she nurses him back to health. And then it turns out he's like a rich guy from across the island. And like, he's like, you can be my lover, but like, you can never be my wife, basically.
Damn.
And it's devastating, but I'm like, it's patriarchy. It's like this idea that like, right, women, we are supposed to be swept off our feet and fall so in love with someone. And we're just like, I'm here to care for you now for the rest of your life. And no matter what kind of man you are, like, I'm going to be loyal and I'm going to stick with you.
Right.
And I will be here. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that like falling in love in that context is actually such a dangerous concept to continue to engage in or practice, right? Because it's not that we don't want to be able to love people and stick with them through all that they have going on and, find ways to stay in relationship and support. But there's a lot of, I was like, falling in love is not the way to make those kind of choices about who you're going to align up your life with and care for.
Right.
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 And so I think that's also been a pattern for me is that I tend to like, and I've aha'd about this before, but I'm like, people often have ended up in my heart and sometimes in my bed that should have ended up on like my healing table or in my healing practice.
Ooh.
That it's like, oh, I've got a lot of healing to give, but trying to do that in a romantic relationship is actually devastating for me.
Yeah.
And it ends up not really working for the other person either. The power dynamics of it aren't very good. So that's something I've become much more mindful about is like, am I falling in love or am I seeing someone who I believe I could heal?
Right.
And can I make the distinction?
I
Right?
mean,
So,
for real. Oh, well,
yeah.
and I want to go back to something that you said just about the that experience of I fall in love with you and
Oh, yeah.
I want to commit to you for the rest of my life regardless of what kind of person you turn out to be. This was such a big arc for me, especially over the last, between going through a divorce, like between
Yeah.
basically being put in a position of having to choose to end my marriage, right? Like
Yes.
I,
Yeah.
you know, where I resisted for a very long time being the one to end it. And then ultimately I was the one who filed for divorce and like,
Yeah.
and took the steps that needed to be taken,
Yeah.
but really under duress, right? Like
Yeah.
I was
I
not,
think you were never going to do it.
I was
You didn't want
I
to.
did not want
Yeah.
to. I really did not want to because I had taken vows. I took those vows seriously. I had created a family with this person, and I really felt
Yeah.
strongly that like that there was nothing that could, you know, rupture
Yeah.
that commitment. And then there was, but and then you know, so it was like under duress. I finally took the
Yeah.
step to end my own marriage,
Mm.
and and one of the things that I like learned through that experience, which sounds so simple to say out loud now, but really it took me going through like so much fire and pain in order to really understand it, that like
Yeah.
my love is unconditional, but my relationships
Yeah.
are not without conditions.
Talk about it.
Because for me, like
That's
when you
right.
know, when I finally chose to end my marriage, when I ended my last relationship, in both scenarios the issue was not like whether I still loved those people, you know.
Yeah.
And I had to
Yeah.
finally come to, in both scenarios I had to come to terms with the fact that like the fact that I love and that I'm in love is not
Yes.
enough to make this what's happening okay.
That's right.
And and that is like it's the to me it feels like the what is the daily activity of understanding love as intention, love as action, love as a choice,
Yes.
love as like me extending my will. That
Yeah.
it's like that having now instead having this orientation of that the relationship itself has to function as a choice that I make every day to
That's right.
to stay in a commitment to stay invested in. And the only relationships in my life really that where I don't have to necessarily have that like, well, actually, I was about to say something, and then as I was
Mm.
thinking about it, I was like, do I even agree with that? Because I think
Like,
that
that's not even true.
because I was gonna say that I was gonna say the only people to whom that doesn't apply are my kids, but then I'm thinking about it and I'm like, actually, even with my children, I know that when I'm doing my best mothering is when I'm being choiceful, when I'm showing up with
That's right.
intention,
That's right.
when I'm saying, ooh, I might be like triggered as hell right now, but my intention is to ensure that my children are getting the best version of me in this moment. And
That's right.
so and so I'm still
And
gonna
that you're not enabling just any way that they want to behave, but that you're like, I'm
right.
helping you to, it's that I'm extending towards your highest experience of yourself and towards your high, like I'm extending
Exactly.
towards your spiritual growth
Yeah.
as a baby being,
And I think that I
and
think
I
there's
can
a
do that unconditionally. Yeah.
exactly, and there's a thing I think to extrapolate there across from like the way we ideally are parenting our children to the way we are ideally
Yeah.
showing up in other kinds of love relationships, which is like
Mm.
which isn't to say we should be parenting our partners, but rather to say that like if I know that the best version of my parenting is going to show up when I'm being in intention and
Yeah.
being choiceful, then I know that that's also going to be true in any other relationship, right?
Yeah.
That's a lesson I get to keep receiving. And I think frankly one of the dangers of the falling in love experience, if when once we go from the fantasy to the hangover, it's like, you know, that
Yeah.
there's, and I know that this has been true in my most significant love relationships, that there can be a sense once we're in hangover territory that I'm going to treat you in whatever way feels like that's the version of me you're getting right now. And because because we're committed to each other, you just have to
Yeah.
deal with whatever it is that you're getting, right? I'm no longer in the same, all that is to
Yeah.
say, all that is to say, in the same way that I wasn't responsible for falling in love with you, I don't have to be
Yeah.
responsible for how I love you.
I deeply understand. I feel like this is so tender and vulnerable, and I'm grateful for you going there because I do feel like there's the whole thing is this idea of like, can I be self responsible? Can I be responsible for myself in relationship to who I let into my life and how I treat that person and why they're in my life? You know, why is this person in my life? And you know, it's one thing that I feel like has become clear is that same thing you said about parenting is also I feel like that's what I've learned in my friendships, right? Is that I'm like, oh, like I know how to love with a lot of accountability. I know how to love and apologize. I know how to love and like I've learned how to love and not try to rescue people. I'm
Right.
learning that, you know, constantly, but it's like that's the hard one for me.
Right.
Um, but I'm like, I can do this. I'm in a lot of friendships where I have navigated the territory. We've made the pivot. We've made that shift. But there is still something in me that when I fall in love, I'm like, now that person is the protagonist of the story. And I am like moonlight trying to help them pull the tide or so, you know, like I cast myself into a secondary role. And so for me, so much of healing from the way that I learned to fall in love and the way that I have practiced it is being like, if it's a choice, the first choice is actually choosing myself. And what does it mean to fall in love with myself and to choose to love myself as I am and to love myself with all the shaping and all the missteps and all the quirkiness and all the realities of just who I am.
Yeah.
And that my job is not to find someone else to set at the center of my life, right? Is to occupy fully the center of my life. And then from that place, finding the other people who make sense to be in constellation with me in this lifetime, right? And so then from that place, loving, like I really have done this with friendships. It's just looked at my friendships, like where is mutuality actually possible?
Yeah.
And what are the moves I make towards mutuality, right? And the same thing with love. It's like, is mutuality actually possible here? Are we both able to be responsible for how we're showing up and for how we're treating each other and for the ways that our trauma comes into our everyday? Because it's like, that's going to all happen. And I used to, I remember the first time someone said, oh, you got to love yourself before you can love anyone else. And I was like, I don't think that quite rings true. I think it's more that you have to continuously love yourself as you're loving others.
Yeah.
Right? Like there has to be a continuous sense of, oh, loving myself, I'm not going to do this behavior. Loving myself, I'm not going to compromise in this way. Loving myself, I'm not going to hide who I truly am until we get further along in the relationship.
Right.
Loving myself, right? Like I'm going to be like, here's who I am. Here's what I deal with. Here's how my little mind works. And here's the places where it kind of goes off the map. Here's what's going on with my body. Here's the needs I have.
Right.
You know, what have you got? And I did want to spend a little time there because I think in the falling in love practice, a lot of it does entail like, shaping yourself to be who you think the other person wants to see.
Yeah.
For better and for worse, right? Like there's sometimes it's like, you know, when people say, you make me want to be better. I'm like, but are you better? Like, who are you?
Better than what? What are we talking about?
Better than what? Are you bad? Like, are you awful? Not that people are bad, but like, so I made this little list of things that I'm like, these are things that I think people contort or hide or tuck away early in a relationship.
Yeah.
And for the sake of falling in love, that almost always will show up and they will break the relationship if they are not addressed. So, and this might be like a guide for choosing love, is like, these are conversations to have in a journey of choosing love. So the first one is the actual structure of relationship you're interested in and down for.
Right.
So, you know, if you're not into monogamy and you're like meeting someone who's like, my goal is to end up with one person forever, then you should be like, that's not my
That's
goal.
not my goal. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I'm over here, I'm trying to have a solo poly magnificent, horde of people who can pull off a heist or whatever. I saw this meme. And like, so what is the structural preference you have for relationships? So that's one. Two is communication styles. Everybody thinks they're so straightforward and so honest and so this and so that.
Oh my God. You ever have that experience where you're talking to a friend who doesn't know how to communicate straightforwardly,
Yes.
and they're complaining
Yes.
about some shit that happened with their partner, and they're like, and
Yes.
I am so direct, and you're like, bitch, you are not.
Bitch, you are not.
You are not.
You are literally not. And I love that for you. I love following you on the circuitous map of trying to figure out how you feel. But I imagine that would be hard for your partner. Yeah. And I'm that person too. I'm also like, I'm so direct. I think I'm so direct. But then like I'll have it mapped out in my mind exactly the direct thing that I'm going to say. And then when I'm sitting there with that other person's face in my face and their heart in my hands, I'm just like, it's so tender being here with you. What the fuck? Anyway, so communication styles and actually like trying to say like, for me, I'm like, it can take me days to get to a place where I'll be able to actually communicate what I really feel. And I need you to be patient with that. Like, that's hard to say to someone when you're like, everyone thinks I can just go there right away. And I can do that for anyone else. But for me,
Right.
I need a little time.
Right.
So the third one is money. Like, what is your actual financial situation? Where are you trying to get to with money? What is your debt? Just what is the background you come from? And I think of it as like, what is the financial trauma you come from? Like, do you come from wealth that isolates? Do you come from poverty that has made it a struggle? Like, trying to date across that line and not talk about it.
Right.
It's amazing to me how many people are like, yeah, we're struggling with this. I'm like, you're struggling with money.
Yeah.
You're struggling with the resources of your relationship and your time. Kids, if you want to have them or not have them, this one has been really personally devastating for me. That it's just like falling in love with someone who really wants to have a kid if you don't want to have one. Like, there's heartbreak down that path, right? Sexual preferences, like, what is your libido? What are you into? Like, that is not a place where you want to contort or hide or be small about anything or pretend that you're into stuff you're not into or that you have a higher libido than you do. Big time. Like, it's really helpful to just be like, this is how I am in this. And if you're going to love me, like, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get every morning I'm going to need that. I need to know that you're up for it or whatever it is. Your politics and all of these things in some way I think of as political stances, but also to just be straight up. Like, are you radical? Are you, are there places where you have a particular need to be involved in struggle and to be involved in fight and to be pushing? What are the political communities you're a part of? What are the values that are important to you? And I feel like I've seen, particularly the women in my life who still date men, really struggling with this one. And when it comes to feminism, right? Because they're like, I am a feminist. It actually really matters to me. And trying to date someone who's a man who may or may not actually be there or able to get there.
Or a man, or men who claim to be feminists, but in practice just are not.
The worst, but
the worst.
Anyway, so that, and then spiritual beliefs, so like, what are the things, like, it could be what you believe about life and death. It could be about what you believe about spirit. It could be practices you're in. Like, I can't be with someone who wants to laugh at any of the practice. I'm like, if you find it hilarious or you want to dismiss in some way that I pull tarot or that I believe in astrology or any of those things, like,
it's not gonna work.
I'm not gonna move down that path, right? Because I'm like, those things are really meaningful spiritual practices for me.
Right.
My therapy is part of my spiritual practice. My other things are part of that. So being able to talk with people like, are you a church person? Do you belong to a spiritual community? Are you in spiritual practices? Like, not hiding that. I remember being with someone who was like, would hide their practices.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you up to? And they're like, I pray. I was like, you could tell me that.
Right.
Like,
oh, no.
It was so, I was like, I pray too, babe. Like, it's all good. But yeah. So
yeah,
those are some of the things.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this because I think that there's like, this is another one of those things too, that's like, it points to how differently our falling in love experiences can, or how different it is to like fall in love versus to choose love, right? Because these are things that it's like, you can also find yourself in the experience of having known someone for a long time and
Yeah.
think you know those things about them. And
Yes.
then once you're actually trying to enter a romantic relationship, then like there's stuff that becomes more clear, right? Once you're,
Yeah.
because I think that's the other thing that like intimacy, you know, intimacy gives you a different view into why something might be a struggle, right? Or why.
Yes.
And I think that that can be challenging too, where it's like you can't always anticipate. Money, for instance, is a really good example of one where lots of people struggle
Yeah.
with money. Once you're inside of intimacy with another person, you start to be able to observe more about why it is that someone is going to struggle with money. And that in some cases can actually make it even harder than to extricate yourself from the relationship, right?
That's right.
Because now you're really hooked into and invested in like their pain, their trauma, their story around like what it is that's going on that's causing them to like engage in whatever
right.
behaviors that are not useful or helpful.
Yeah.
And so it is like I like the intention of being like, let's
Yes.
figure out as much of this stuff as possible before we choose to like tie our lives to each other.
Exactly.
And
Well, and I will say just also there's this other little piece here for me that's like because part of what's happening with the chemical, biological, pheromonal, all that stuff that's popping off is it's making it really hard to see the other person clearly.
yes.
So these can be ways that are like, wait, this is like, let me just throw this lens on it and throw this lens on it and throw this lens on it to help me just see it clearly enough. Again, if you're not moving into trying to make major commitments, like moving in, marrying, joint bank accounts, whatever else, if you're not shifting into those, ride out, be in the bliss, enjoy it.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like if the falling in love is leading you into making major life changes, this set of questions needs to be, you need to really just hit the brakes a little bit with some of these things and just be like, I just want to make sure this stuff is lined up.
This makes me think about another just another lane of inquiry, which is the difference between romance and falling in love.
Ooh,
because well, as you were just saying about, if you're not moving towards major life commitments or major changes to your life to accommodate this person, then ride out the bliss. And I think that there's a disappointment that comes for people when they exit the quote unquote falling in love phase, and then there's like the rest of the relationship. And I think that
this is why the Disney movie always ends at marriage.
Right. It's like credits.
Right.
And I think that we can conflate falling in love with romance. And or like we think that the blissed outness of the beginning is the romance, but actually there are ways, I think, to awaken romance inside of a relationship so that you get to have those experiences that feel so enthralling and captivating, and like I can't take my eyes off of you, and I just want to stare into your eyes deeply. You know what I mean? Like all of those things that go with that we tend to think of as being about that falling in love phase, they can be awakened, but I think it's really hard. It's hard if we feel that the romance is something that is discrete to a particular moment in the relationship.
I really appreciate that. I also feel like there's something interesting for me around like lust versus love versus
preach.
Cathexis, which is another concept that Bell Hooks talks about in this book, which is like, because I think a lot of relationships actually start out in lust and then move into cathexis. And she taught me this, which is lust, which is like, I'm obsessing about my desire for you. I just want to look at you, smell you, dive up in your body, lust. And then cathexis is like, once you've landed in the habit of togetherness, that you kind of continue in the habit of togetherness. And may look a little like love, or you kind of are like, I guess this is love
Mm,
because we are together. And so we just spend our time together. We do stuff together. And like, that's what it is.
yeah.
And I really noticed the distinction for me where I'm like, oh no, like love is a choosing every day. And this is who I really want to spend my time with. And this is really nourishing me in these different ways. And I can feel myself growing. I can feel this person growing. And it's one of the reasons why I don't have any regrets about my love life.
Yeah.
Like, even though my relationships have come into space and they have grown and they have gone through changes and then they've ended, I really can feel what I learned from each of those loves, and I can feel the love that I was offering, and I can feel the lessons of it, right? That I'm like, I made it past the romantic phase and I made it past the lust phase, and I like stayed in and did the work that was available to do, and I extended towards that person's spiritual growth. And then there was a moment where, okay, that growth is taking us in different directions, and we have different work to attend to, right? And I feel like, but I do feel like if you can catch that, that's like, oh, can I feel the distinction in myself between lust and love, right? Can I feel the distinction in myself between lust and cathexis? Can I feel it between cathexis and love? And where does romance play into all of that? And I do think that like relationships that last are ones that are able to cycle back into romance over and over again.
Right.
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 Some of them daily, some of them it's like, okay, we fell out. I've seen couples that I love dearly, and watching them go through a major hardship, a death in the family, or a loss, or a major change, and that having a hard impact on the relationship and putting them to challenges, but then being able to be like, you know what, it's still you. And I'm still committed to extending towards your spiritual growth. You're still committed to extending to mine. And more about this works than doesn't. And let's keep growing together. And I see that and I'm like, you can tell, I'm like, I believe it. That's worth the work you're doing.
Yeah.
But I also feel like there's a lot of people who stay in situations where I'm like, that's literally stagnating your spiritual growth because it's cathexis, or the lust burned out and you haven't left the building, or you're just in service to what this other person is trying to do, or there's some other mess that's happening that's playing out under the auspices of like, you have to stay together. And I think that we're again, generationally, I think we're in this really interesting and exciting place, because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, in the same way, everything doesn't have to be monogamous. It's also, everything doesn't have to be one thing for your whole life.
Right.
Like, as you grow and change as a human being, you might have multiple people who are loves of your life. And hopefully you are the primary one of those, but that you will go through phases where different people match different parts of you, especially if you are late bloomer in any ways, which I think a lot of us can be, again, because of this, the heaviness of capitalism and patriarchy and these systems we're up against.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, if you had never realized you were queer, like, I'm like, who would you be?
Yeah.
That would be so weird to me.
Yeah.
Like, and yet for a long time, it was like, oh yeah, you've made this commitment for the rest of your life.
Right.
And like,
right. I'm an ally.
Yeah, anyway. Exactly. I was like, girl, you're not trying to ally that.
Well, I have
anyway.
one last little note on this, because I know we have to close, but
I never ever want to end.
I know, and that actually relates to what I was going to say. That there was a dear friend of mine and I were talking about this recently, about how in not just in romantic relationships, but in all of our relationships, in part because of the fact that we live under capitalism and our relationship narratives are really shaped by the media, there is a real addiction to drama inside of relationship. Right.
That's
and
right.
not like an addiction to conflict per se, but an idea that like that the relationship is not really happening unless there is a drama of some kind unfolding either within or around it. And I think that that's something for for us to keep percolating on, for our listeners to keep percolating on, the like, where is a need for intensity informing the way that we are orienting to the experience of loving other people, and like, can that need for intensity be fulfilled in some other way that doesn't have to be destabilizing to core relationships? And like, I know for myself, this is like the big thing that I'm working on right now, that I'm like, part of why I'm so oriented to being single for at least one full year and like really taking my time, is like figuring out, like, can I have an experience of emotional and or sexual intensity with another person without then feeling like that compels action? Like, what does it look like to just be in the experience without having to act on it? Or what does it look like to, alternatively, what would it look like to feel just deep, loving connection with another person and have it not be intense or addictive, or like requiring me to destabilize something in my life in order for it to happen? You know, like, what, like, it doesn't have to be a crisis when we love.
Oh my goodness! Please make that a T-shirt. I mean, I do. I feel like that. I feel like you're singing my life with your words, because I really am like, you know, for a long time now, I've recognized that when I'm really deeply loving myself is when I'm the most productive. I'm like, oh, I'm writing books, I'm writing plays, I'm writing musicals, I'm writing poems. You know, like so much is pouring through me because there's a baseline stability. And then falling in love, literally, if it's the way that I was told that it's supposed to happen, drops me out of that stability and that life and everything else. And suddenly I'm like in the upside down world, you know, just like, how do I get back over there to where I want to write my books and stuff, but also attend to your needs? And, you know, there's also beautiful need. That's also why I want to continuously for myself hold that line of like, this person needs healing, or they need something else that helps them find whatever stability is going to look like for their own lives. But this stability that I have to protect. That's what my self-love is demanding of me, right? And this is what feels like maturity. And it feels like the soundtrack of my love life is shifting from the I'm in over my head, that Alabama Shakes song, which I have listened to like exactly. I'm like, I've listened to that song a gazillion times, right? And I'm like, instead, I feel like, I don't know, right now it feels like Meg Thee Stallion's Gift and a Curse. Because she's just said, she's like, I know my worth.
Yeah.
I really know my worth. Like
mine right now is, you won't break my soul. You won't break my
also that. Also that entire, I'm like, I'm one of one. I'm number one. I'm the only one. You're not going to break my soul. Like, I'm cozy with who I am. Yes. Right? So it's the entire Renaissance album plus
Meg Thee Stallion. Yeah.
So speaking of that, I feel like that took us right into pop cultural joy. And I would love to know, what's rocking your boat this
season? So many things to choose from. There's a lot of really there's so much excellence happening in the culture.
Culture's popping right now.
But I'll just go with like last 24 hours. Me and the kids started... Me and the kids started watching the new Andor series, which is the latest Star Wars TV show. And it stars... it's basically following the events leading up to Rogue One, the film. So like Cassian, who's the star, the one of the stars of Rogue One, it's like his story in the lead up in the 5 years before the events of that film.
Soon enough, these days will end. There will be no rules going forward. People are standing up.
It's so good already. We watched 2 episodes last night. It's like, it's got all of the like, it's got like the gritty characters who are like just, doing the mechanical things on the planet you've never heard of. It's also got the like, the middle manager, sort of angry, trying to prove themselves, white men who are always like taking things too far because they're, trying to show how loyal they are to the empire. It's like, it's got all of the, it's got the like, all the aliens, all the costumes,
Music,
it's already
bars.
very. Oh, the music. That was the other thing. That was the Finn really tuned into this right away. Finn was like, the soundtrack of this is amazing, and I was like, yeah, they like did something different this time around. So yeah, it's if you're a Star Wars fan and you like diversity. So if you're not one of the Star Wars fans who's like a racist misogynist, this is not for you.
Aliens can't be black.
But yeah, if you're a Star Wars fan who appreciates the fullness of what is possible in science fiction, then you will be into this show. What have you got, sis?
I love that. Mine is very clear. This week I went to see The Woman King, which is Viola Davis's magnus opus.
I'm so
she's
jealous.
Called it. And I want everyone to go see this movie thrice.
Okay. No spoilers.
It's one of the best things I've ever seen. Like everything about it was both utopian and devastating and gorgeous and invigorating and powerful.
My king, the Europeans wish to conquer us. They will not stop until the whole of Africa is theirs. We must fight back for our people.
Aleska, you are asking me to take them to war. War.
Some things are worth fighting for.
It's about the Dahomey tribe and the Amazon warriors and their fighters, and they're incredible. And I particularly want to name one of them is Izogi, and it's I'm in love.
You're in love.
So Lashana Lynch plays this character, and I've seen Lashana Lynch in other things, so I know it's specifically the character that I'm in love with.
I see. Okay, got it.
Lashana Lynch is like fine as all get out every single day, but in this role, she plays this woman warrior who's kind of like the one who's guiding the trainees through their training process. And it's like, I just like looking at her in the trailer, I can't handle myself. So the funny thing I want to share about this is that one of my dear friends, who is straighter than I, was like, watch out, because you're going to go see this and John Boyega's in it and he's just going to do some stuff to your panties, right? And I was just like, okay, cool.
Okay.
Like, I'm ready for it. Yeah, like, he's a cutie pie, little baby, whatever. But I go and I'm like, is he on the screen?
Because I don't know. Who is he?
That person right there is one. That's the one for me. And I couldn't take my eyes off her the entire time. She's one of one. She's so dynamic and powerful. But I mean, and they all are. Like every single person, they did all their own stunts. Ooh. It is, you just are watching it like, I want to go to this training camp. I want to be a part of this world. And now I'm writing fan fiction. I'm writing a fan fiction in which I get to be in the palace with them, but I'm like, one of the singers who like
erotica fan fiction.
It's definitely erotica fan fiction. It's absolutely lesbian erotica fan fiction about me and my love, and it's the only way this love story could happen because she literally is sworn to like not fall in love as one of these warriors. Yeah, so I was like, totally. Oh, of course, that aspect of my type is. Yeah, I was like, oh. Unattainable.
Oh my God, like, that is like that's like a part 2 episode we should do is Forbidden Love. Like, let's do that because
can we do Forbidden Love?
That's a whole thing. It's a whole fucking thing. That's a whole
situation.
Woo!
Okay, right. So anyway, everybody go see it. You will not regret it. Okay. And also we want to support Black people making work exactly like this. Like this is what we want more and more of.
Let's do that. Okay.
I literally I feel warmed up by just talking about it. Okay.
And on that note, thanks for listening to our show. We're on Twitter and Instagram at End of the World PC. We're also on Facebook at End of the World Show. Did you know?
You can make a sustaining donation to our show by visiting our page at patreon.com/endoftheworldshow.
Another incredible thing you can do to help our show sustain itself is to write us a review on Apple Podcasts if you are an iPhone person. Thank you.
How to Survive the End of the World is produced and edited by the incomparable Zach Rosen and transcribed by Jess Pinkham and Sarah Robbins-Breen.
Music for today's show comes from Tunde Alaniran and Mother Cyborg.
I just got to spend time with Tunde and he's still a genius.
Tunde
we love y'all.
Will always be a genius. I love you.
Nonstop genius. We'll see you next time, y'all.
Bye.
Keep loving.